Bannon says that?
Bannon stated.
Wow, that sounds like a lefty.
Why do you think I said I agree with Steve Bannon? That rarely happens.
Looks like the ladies of The View apparently were shocked to find themselves agreeing with none other than Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's advisor in his first term, still a friend of his who he talks to regularly. But what could they possibly find common ground on? Well, the panel was actually commenting on Bannon's ongoing feud with Elon Musk. In a recent interview, Bannon went nuclear, as he tends to do, on Musk. So here,
Anna Kasparian just said something no one expected. She actually agrees with Steve Bannon, at least on one thing. In a political moment that caught many off guard, the Young Turks co-host and longtime progressive found common ground with Trump's former strategist on economic populism and the dangers of tech oligarchs like Elon Musk. So, what exactly did Bannon say that even The View and left-wing commentators took notice? And what does this unlikely agreement reveal about the shifting battle lines in American politics? Let's break it all down.
Musk is a parasitic, illegal immigrant. He wants to impose his freak experiments and play act as God without any respect for the country's history, values, or traditions. He says that Doge is sitting there with the budget, but where the F are the Doge cuts? We are 30 days away from approving a budget for the entire year with $2 trillion already baked in, and not one penny of anything that Doge found. It's ludicrous. And then he says it's pretty evident the president's using Musk as an armor-piercing shell that's delivering blunt force trauma against the administrative state. Now, Bannon even went so far as to call Elon Musk an agent of Chinese influence. But for now, Bannon seems to be making his peace with Musk, or at least trying to, even though he made those comments during the Unheard interview not too long ago. Here's what he's saying. The enemy of the enemy is my friend. This country is being destroyed by the Praetorian Guard of the administrative state. Elon is helping expose this. So I guess there are some redeeming qualities, according to Steve Bannon here, as it pertains to Elon Musk. Yesterday, though, Bannon warned Republicans that they should not trust oligarchs.
You can tell President Trump doesn't totally trust the oligarchs. We're putting in very tough antitrust people into the Justice Department and to the alphabet agencies, and they have on War Room or a huge platform. Look, I'm not a conservative, right? I'm a Republican because I've registered Republican. I'm really a populist nationalist. So as you see here today, these are working class and middle class people, and they don't want the concentration of power. And by the way, those oligarchs and people at CNN are understanding it. Just like they've turned on you now, right? They've abandoned the progressive left. They will abandon us in the same thing. They seek power. Right now, their feeling is they can see the math and they see that we have a building coalition. Yeah. So they're with us, but only temporarily.
So all of this context in mind, here's The View's full take on this beef between Elon Musk and Steve Bannon.
In a rare moment of political crossover, the hosts of The View found themselves agreeing with none other than Steve Bannon on certain economic issues. The discussion stemmed from Bannon's escalating feud with Elon Musk, whom he recently labeled a parasitic illegal immigrant in a controversial interview. Bannon's criticism of Musk goes beyond personal attacks. He sees the billionaire as a tool of the establishment, being used to dismantle government institutions under the guise of reform. Yet, despite his harsh words, Bannon also acknowledges Musk's role in exposing government corruption and bureaucracy. This contradictory stance, simultaneously attacking and praising the tech mogul, reflects a broader ideological rift within right-wing populism, where figures like Bannon view billionaires as both potential allies and dangerous threats to their movement. Take a look.
I hate to say it, but I agree with Steve Bannon on this one, purely because, they're cutting all these programs. They're saying they're going to cut the fat, and they have numbers. Before they ever went in, they said, we want to get $1 trillion out. That's a businessman's approach to a government. And what Bannon stands for, which breaks with Elon Musk, is don't tax overtime, don't tax Social Security, don't tax Give the money to the people that need it the most.
Who, Bannon says that?
Bannon statement.
Wow, that sounds like a lefty.
Why do you
to me.
think I said I agree with Steve Bannon? That rarely happens. But on this, I do agree with them. Trump ran on helping the people that voted him in. And what he's doing is he's in there now and he's breaking in the corporate greed area, which is I'm going to give tax breaks to people that can afford it more than anyone else. Steve Bannon says it is going to hurt for all of us. We all got into this together. You need to give the breaks to the lower in the middle class. Stop slashing and helping the top. They don't need more.
It sounds like Bernie Sanders also.
I know. This is when I Bernie out.
So look, I mean, if I had to pick either person, right, I agree more with Steve Bannon's statements, his rhetoric in regard to the economy. I don't trust Elon Musk, and I don't blame Bannon for telling Republican voters that they should be careful with the tech oligarchs who were Democrats yesterday and seem to be utilizing the Trump administration for their own benefit. But what do you think about the ladies over at The View? You think they're funded by Polymarket?
So a couple of things, guys. There's the Bannon portion of this, which is super interesting. And then there's the reaction to Bannon, which is also interesting. So on Bannon himself, very complicated character. We've talked about his downsides endlessly, including, ripping people off on the fake wall that he was gonna build, et cetera. And my God, no one is more anti-immigrant than Steve Bannon is in a way that is, that I massively disagree with. And so, and I disagree with him here when he says that Elon Musk is a parasitic, illegal immigrant. I don't think he's illegal. And so using that kind of language doesn't help at all in relation to immigrants. And I want to be careful and tell you that armor-piercing shell comment that he had about Elon was actually a positive comment. He was saying, on the other hand, he's a armor-piercing shell being used to batter the system, right? And he views that as a positive. And he's trying to have it both ways, criticize him viciously, but then turn around and say, well, I see some of the good. So I'm sure that's why Donald Trump is using him, because he's so smart, because he's trying to curry favor with Trump. And I get the politics of that. Having said all of that, did you notice he said that he was not a conservative? Yeah. That was an interesting comment. And he said, I'm a Republican, but only registered that way. So not really a Republican. He said, I'm a populist nationalist.
Yeah, he actually says that a lot. And yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
You know why? Because one, he is, and he's been that way the whole time, for bad and for good. There's a lot of parts that we agree with the populism, right? The nationalism is dangerous, and we love America, but loving America doesn't mean you should be a nationalist. That's a totally different thing and a different conversation.
One of the most striking elements of Bannon's position is his embrace of economic populism, an approach that, in many ways, mirrors the rhetoric of left-wing progressives like Bernie Sanders. Bannon vehemently opposes corporate greed, denouncing economic policies that prioritize tax cuts for the wealthy at the expense of working-class Americans. He warns against slashing social programs like Medicaid and Social Security, arguing that such cuts would disproportionately harm the very people who make up the Republican base. This critique stands in direct contrast to the traditional conservative playbook, which has long favored deregulation and tax relief for corporations and the ultra-rich. His stance creates a paradox. While he remains a staunch nationalist, his economic views align more closely with progressive populists than with the corporate-friendly GOP establishment. It's this unorthodox economic position that led The View hosts, who typically oppose Bannon on every front, to concede that he has a point. Beyond his feud with Musk, Bannon is also sounding the alarm about the growing influence of oligarchs in American politics. He warns Republicans that the tech billionaires currently aligning with their party are not true allies but opportunists who shift their loyalty based on where they can gain the most power and profit. According to Bannon, these elites, who were once firmly in the Democratic camp, are now supporting the Trump movement simply because it benefits their business interests. He sees this as a major threat, cautioning that these figures will abandon the Republican cause just as easily as they abandoned progressivism when it was no longer useful to them. This critique is significant because it exposes a major tension within the modern right-wing movement. While Trumpism has embraced economic nationalism and working-class rhetoric, it remains heavily reliant on corporate donors and tech moguls who do not share those populist values.
So when we first started saying hey guys, there's some populists in the right wing, and there's some fake populists, there's some real populists, and and their media is now splintered, and they don't all agree. We got a wall of shut up, they're all evil, they're all racist, etc. You shouldn't talk to any of them. We're anti-knowledge. We don't want to know. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, The View, of all people, The View is like, oh, Steve Bannon, interesting. Huh. Okay, and now I'm hearing other left-wing hosts online who are like, oh, Steve Bannon. Really? And talking about building coalitions. Really? I thought we were collaborators. What happened? Now all of a sudden it turns out, oh right, you might want to build some coalitions if you'd like to win on policy, if you'd like to stop Elon Musk, or if Elon Musk is right, as opposed to Steve Bannon on things like immigration, then you go on Elon Musk's side. Hey, look at that. Now you're relevant. Instead of being an irrelevant guy yelling into the abyss that isn't helping your voters, your side, your policies at all, right? So I'm glad that people are coming around to realizing, yeah, duh, try to win over the voters, try to build coalitions that are effective and are going towards the things that we believe in, not going towards the things that we are opposed to. You fight those, not complicated, obvious. So, and by the way, if you notice, despite the fact that when we were the first to do it, everyone blasted us, it didn't take that long for people to start coming to their senses and go, oh yeah, well if he does agree with us and he's against Musk or Trump in that particular case, maybe we should say yes to agreeing with us.
While still blasting us though, so.
That's okay, that's okay. So the bottom line is we're getting a little bit more rational now. So don't ever let your guard down. It's not like, oh, Steve Bannon's a swell guy, put him in the Oval Office, see what happens, right? No. On the other hand, when he's talking about, and he's now saying this a lot, raise corporate taxes.
Yeah.
Don't lower corporate taxes. Yes, yes, we agree. So when Bannon agrees with us, take the frickin' win, right? And then fight him on all the other things.
Yeah. But they're gonna lower corporate taxes.
Of course, that's where Bannon, us, doesn't matter. We're all, the right-wing populists, the independents, we're all gonna get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Because that's where the real money is. That's trillions of dollars in tax cuts to the donor class. And if you'll notice, MAGA, whether it's the Democratic donor class or the Trump donor class, they're all gonna get, not billions, trillions in tax cuts.
They sure are.
And all of those supposed savings, they're not going to you. They're going to those tax cuts.
Yeah, the oligarchs, the tech oligarchs specifically, have co-opted the MAGA movement.
It's not often that the hosts of The View find themselves nodding in agreement with Steve Bannon, but his arguments about corporate greed and tax policy struck a chord. They acknowledged that his critique of Musk and the broader tech elite was valid, even as they maintained their deep opposition to his nationalist ideology and hardline stance on immigration. One host even noted that Bannon's economic populism sounded strikingly similar to Bernie Sanders, highlighting the surprising ideological overlap between certain factions of the populist right and left. This moment of agreement underscores an important political reality. While partisanship dominates most debates, economic concerns often transcend ideological divides. Bannon's comments and the reaction they sparked reflect a broader shift in American politics, where the traditional left-right divide is giving way to a battle between populists and the corporate elite. For years, mainstream media and establishment politicians have dismissed populist voices as radical or dangerous. But as figures like Bannon and even progressive leaders like Sanders highlight similar economic grievances, the conversation is changing. The realization that economic policies favoring the ultra-rich are harming working-class Americans, regardless of political affiliation, is driving an emerging coalition of voters who reject the influence of billionaires and corporate elites in government. This shift presents both challenges and opportunities. On one hand, it forces establishment politicians in both parties to address the economic concerns of the working class rather than relying on corporate donors. On the other, it creates uneasy alliances, as seen in Bannon's simultaneous attacks on and defenses of Musk. As the political landscape continues to evolve, one thing is clear: economic populism is gaining momentum. And whether it comes from the right or the left, its influence is reshaping the American political debate.